Woman's Dress, Pall Mall Gazette, 14 October 1884, by Oscar Wilde. Mr. Oscar Wilde, who asks us to permit him that most charming of all pleasures, the pleasure of answering one's critics, sends us the following remarks. The girl graduate must of course have precedence, not merely for her sex, but for her sanity. Her letter is extremely sensible. She makes 2 points: that high heels are a necessity for any lady who wishes to keep her dress clean from the Stygian mud of our streets, and that without a tight corset, the ordinary number of petticoats and etceteras cannot be properly or conveniently held up. Now, it is quite true that as long as the lower garments are suspended from the hips, of course it is an absolute necessity. The mistake lies in not suspending all apparel from the shoulders. In the latter case, a corset becomes useless. The body is left free and unconfined for respiration and motion. There is more health and consequently more beauty. Indeed, all the most ungainly and uncomfortable articles of dress that fashion has ever in her folly prescribed, not the tight corset merely, but the farthingale, the vertugidin, the hoop, the crinoline, and that modern monstrosity, the so-called dress improver, also all of them have owed their origin to the same error, the error of not seeing that it is from the shoulders, and from the shoulders only, that all garments should be hung. And as regards high heels, I quite admit that some additional height to the shoe or boot is necessary if long gowns are to be worn in the street, but what I object to is that the height should be given to the heel only, and not to the sole of the foot also. The modern high-heeled boot is in fact merely the clog of the time of Henry VI, with the front prop left out, and its inevitable effect is to throw the body forward, to shorten the steps, and consequently to produce that want of grace which always follows want of freedom. Why should clogs be despised? Much art has been expended on clogs. They have been made of lovely woods, and delicately inlaid with ivory, and with mother of pearl. A clog might be a dream of beauty, and if not too high or too heavy, most comfortable also. But if there be any who do not like clogs, let them try some adaptation of the trouser of the Turkish lady, which is loose round the limb and tight at the ankle. The girl graduate, with a pathos to which I am not insensible, entreats me not to apotheosize that awful befringed, beflounced, and bekilted divided skirt. Well, I will acknowledge that the fringes, the flounces, and the kilting do certainly defeat the whole object of the dress, which is that of ease and liberty. But I regard these as mere wicked superfluities, tragic proofs that the divided skirt is ashamed of its own division. The principle of the dress is good, and though it is not by any means perfection, it is a step towards it. Here I leave the girl graduate with much regret, for Mr. Wentworth Hoysh. Mr. Hoyshe makes the old criticism that Greek dress is unsuited to our climate, and to me the somewhat new assertion that the men's dress of 100 years ago was preferable to that of the second part of the 17th century, which I consider to have been the exquisite period of English costume. Now, as regards these first 2 statements, I will say, to begin with, that the warmth of apparel does not depend really on the number of garments worn, but on the material of which they are made. One of the chief faults of modern dress is that it is composed of far too many articles of clothing, most of which are of the wrong substance, but over a substratum of pure wool, such as is supplied by Dr. Jaeger under the modern German system. Some modification of Greek costume is perfectly applicable to our climate, our country, and our century. This important fact has already been pointed out by Mr. E. W. Godwin in his excellent, though too brief, Handbook on Dress, contributed to the Health Exhibition. I call it an important fact because it makes almost any form of lovely costume perfectly practicable in our cold climate. Mr. Godwin, it is true, points out that the English ladies of the 13th century abandoned after some time the flowing garments of the early Renaissance in favor of a tighter mode, such as Northern Europe seems to demand. This I quite admit, and its significance, but what I contend, and what I am sure Mr. Godwin would agree with me in, is that the principles, the laws of Greek dress may be perfectly realized, even in a moderately tight gown with sleeves. I mean the principle of suspending all apparel from the shoulders, and of relying for beauty of effect not on the stiff ready ornaments of the modern milliner, the bows where there should be no bows, and the flounces where there should be no flounces, but on the exquisite play of light and line that one gets from rich and rippling folds. I am not proposing any antiquarian revival of this ancient costume, but trying merely to point out the right laws of dress, laws which are dictated by art and not by archaeology, by science and not by fashion, is just as the best work of art in our days is that which combines classic grace with absolute reality. So, from a continuation of the Greek principles of beauty, with the German principles of health will come, I feel certain, the costume of the future. And now to the question of men's dress, or rather to Mr. Hoishi's claim of the superiority in point of costume of the last quarter of the 18th century over the second quarter of the 17th. The broad-brimmed hat of 1640 kept the rain of winter and the glare of summer from the face. The same cannot be said of the hat of 100 years ago, with its comparatively narrow brim and high crown, was the precursor of the modern chimney pot. A wide, turned-down collar is a much healthier thing than a strangling stock, and a short cloak much more comfortable than a sleeved overcoat, even though the latter may have had 3 capes. A cloak is easier to put on and off, lies lightly on the shoulder in summer, and wrapped around one in winter keeps one perfectly warm. A doublet again is simpler than a coat and waistcoat. Instead of 2 garments, one has one. By not being open, it also protects the chest better. Short, loose trousers are in every way to be preferred to the tight knee breeches, which often impede the proper circulation of the blood, and finally the soft leather boots, which could be worn above or below the knee, are more supple and give consequently more freedom than the stiff Hessian which Mr. Hoishi so praises. I say nothing about the question of grace and picturesqueness, for I suppose that no one, not even Mr. Hoishi, would prefer a macaroni to a cavalier, a Lawrence to a Van Dyck, or the third George to the first Charles, but for ease, warmth, and comfort of this 17th century dress is infinitely superior to anything that came after it, and I do not think it is excelled by any preceding form of costume. I sincerely trust that we may soon see in England some national revival of it.